Hey, gang, this week's episode is brought to you by Royal Retros, the king of throwbacks. Hey, if you're looking for teams and leagues that don't exist anymore, but you'd like to remember them in high-quality jersey or uniform format, hey, some of those teams were legendary, some of them were disasters, but they all live at Royal Retros. Check them out. RoyalRetros.com. Use that promo code SEATS for 10% off all of your purchases. Check them out now. And now, check out this episode.
Growing up in Miami, it was a rough start. We were living in a horrible area. The town was called Little Haiti. Almost 80–90% of the population in that area were Haitians. But you know what, I had a mom who was very supportive. I had a sister who became second mom to us because mom and dad split up.
Our mom was amazing. She's been our inspiration, raising 8 kids all by herself. And so working 2 jobs all the time, I had to kind of step in and help with the younger ones. To get her to the point where she was, it took so much hard work because we lived in a place where people don't really believe in kids like us having opportunities.
So I was always focusing on where lies a light. How am I going to get out of this environment and make something of myself? At the age of 13, I hear this announcement, anyone interested in girls basketball, come out and try out. And it dawned on me that, wow, I should go do that. Coach Burke instilled fundamentals in us, not just myself, but all the other Haitian girls, and we became a powerhouse.
The gym would be sold out. You'd have a section that's literally, I know it's illegal, but betting on Marie. And it was just always so amazing to see how skillful she was at the game and how focused she was. And when she's on that court, it's a different person.
It just became something where I said to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to use sport as a vehicle to capitalize off a scholarship. And that just opened everything up for me.
Welcome to Good Seats Still Available, a curious little podcast devoted to exploring what used to be in professional sports. Here's your host, Tim Hanlon.
Well, hey there, everybody. It's Tim Hanlon, and it's Good Seats Still Available, the curious little podcast that is, of course, devoted to what used to be in professional sports. And we thank you for finding us, however you have done so. Welcome to the proceedings. And we are really intrigued with a wonderful conversation this week with our guest, Marie Ferdinand-Harris, and a look back at the early days of the WNBA. And women's basketball is certainly a place where we've spent some time. Lord knows we've gone back to the old WBL, if you remember that, with a couple of great conversations with the great Molly Kazmer, Nay Bolin, some of those early years. But I think people seem to sort of forget that the WNBA, while it's having more than a moment, as is women's sports, perhaps long overdue, you could make the argument. It's already 27 years old. It started back in the mid-1990s. And people forget that, as the NBA was sort of seeding this league to get the women's game sort of at another level, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of shakiness with some of these franchises and that kind of stuff. And that, of course, gets our interest heightened because we're just fascinated by various teams and league situations and whatnot that have come and gone. And the WNBA in the early years has not disappointed, shall we say. And anytime I find an opportunity to go into any league with teams that have not sort of lived on, or perhaps do live on, but we just haven't sort of understood how and from where they came, we're all ears. And hence was the case with our new pal, Marie Ferdinand-Harris, who, if you're a fan of the early WNBA, was one of its early stars. Her playing career was about a 10, 11-year journey between 2001 and 2011. And for those professional years, she was a standout at LSU. And as you heard in that clip there, discovered the game of basketball midway through her high school career in the Little Haiti section of Miami, not necessarily the most nurturing of environments, that location. But as you heard there with her sister and herself, her family, obviously a big part of her strength and her coach at that time at high school, at Edison High School in Miami, in the little Haiti area. She got the bug, shall we say, and boy, was she a really good bug in all respects. She was a standout at LSU, was a first-round pick in 2001 in the WNBA draft, 8th overall, and we get into her story, her meteoric rise into the realm of arguably a then fledgling women's professional basketball career. And two in particular teams that catch our fancy are remember these, the Utah Starzz, 2 Z's, please, in the first number of years, who then moved in the middle of her time there to San Antonio to become the San Antonio Silver Stars. No Z's there, just Stars, but San Antonio Silver Stars. And then they became the San Antonio Stars, right? So connection obviously was trying to be made with the San Antonio Spurs of the NBA at the time. The Utah Starzz with the 2 Z's obviously was a forced convention to, I guess, sort of at least have a similar ending to the Jazz of the NBA there. And as we know, the early years of the WNBA, and still today, although not exclusively, there is that sort of investment and relationship, and oftentimes co-ownership between the male NBA and the female WNBA teams and league, part of that league, right? And also, actually, that clip that you heard comes from some looks back from the current Las Vegas Aces. And why is that? Well, Marie never played for the Aces in particular. She actually wound up ending her career between in the late aughts with the LA Sparks, and then in 2011, her last season with the Phoenix Mercury. But the Utah Starzz, which begat the San Antonio Silver Stars, which then became the San Antonio Stars, wound up moving to Las Vegas in 2018 to become the Las Vegas Aces. And as we love to hear in our conversations, the Aces are actually looking back at their history, relatively tortured and left and right and sideways. But the Utah Starzz, the San Antonio Silver Stars, the San Antonio Stars, all part of that legacy, as is the playing days, the bulk of the playing days of our guest this week, Marie Ferdinand-Harris, with that hyphen between, please, if you're scoring at home. And it's a wonderful conversation. And by the way, it's a lot more than just memories of teams come and gone, as you'll hear in our conversation. Marie's story is inspirational on a very personal level. She lost her firstborn son to a tragic accident in his teenage years. She has a foundation that is committed to his memory and helping other kids out there, especially those who are disadvantaged, either from broken homes or other tragic situations. That website is called belikecj.org, and that's in memory of and the support of and the affirmation of the late Cedric C.J. Harris, her first son. So a tragedy, some fun and frivolity, and lots of stuff in between. This is a fascinating, wonderful, and inspirational conversation that we had with Marie just a couple of weeks back. And yes, we would be remiss to not tell you that there is a great book that we highly recommend that you read that encompasses not only that, there's even a picture of her on the cover in her Utah Starzz jersey as real proof that this franchise actually existed. The book is called Transformed: The Winning Side of Losing. We highly recommend it. You can find it off of our website at goodseatsstillavailable.com. Just search up this episode number 339 with Marie. But you can also get this book directly, and I think you will after listening to this conversation, from her website at marieferdinand.com. That's M-A-R-I-E, Marie Ferdinand, F-E-R-D-I-N-A-N-D, Ferdinand, marieferdinand.com. And you can get an autographed copy of that book from her as well there. And either way, you'll proverbially and realistically be glad you did. And hopefully you'll also be glad that you did listen to the entirety of this lovely chat that we had just a few weeks back. We appreciate Marie making the time for us, and let's present that conversation to you now, shall we? As always, please enjoy. You had some pretty humble beginnings in school, and basketball was pretty much a divining rod for you as you grew up. Maybe a little background about where you kind of started and how basketball came into your life in the beginning.
Yes, well, I was originally born and raised in Miami, Florida. Both my parents were immigrants, moved to a horrible area in Miami, Florida called Little Haiti. And it's not the best place to raise a family, but it was the best that my parents could do at the time, being that, they had very little resources. So the area we lived in were the most crime, drugs, all those bad things that you can think of. Poor school districts, low performing schools. You're destined to fail. I mean, there's no hope in that area. It's very, you're supposed to fail. It was a dark place, but although I was in a dark place, I was always focusing on where lies a light. How do I escape this environment? How do I make something more for myself? How do I create my own story, write my own story? And for me, it didn't happen until the age of 13. I heard this announcement, anyone interested in basketball. And I went on out and tried out, and that just literally changed the trajectory of my life. I end up teaming up with this coach called John Burke, who was they call him Mr. Fundamentals. Now, Coach Burke was all about teaching the fundamentals, which was amazing because at that time I loved basketball, but I still didn't have the fundamentals. So it was a good divine intervention moment for me. And Coach Crow was also that coach that believed in year-round development, meaning you play every day, you practice every day. That's how you get better. And that's what I did. I literally bought into his system, and every day I was practicing. And within a year, I went from no one knowing who I was to becoming one of the most sought after guards that all these universities wanted to give a scholarship to by my sophomore year in high school. So it dawned on me that, wow, I'm going to use sports as a vehicle to capture this college tuition and get that paid off and get a scholarship and be an example to my younger sisters and show them that college can be a reality. So that's kind of how it all got started for me, and also in the midst of doing that, we changed the culture of the program. It became more of a positive school because we were dominating on the court. We were selling out. The gym was selling out. We just became the talk of the town. Wow, they were just like, how are all these Haitians winning all these games? But it came through work ethic and putting in time in the gym and getting good grades at the same time. So the whole
before you go further, a couple of
Mhm.
questions. You mentioned you had siblings, yes, at the time, and now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
8 of
where
us
were
in
you? Where were
total.
you in the family tree there?
I'm literally in the middle,
Okay.
fifth of
So
8 kids.
that explains a lot, right? Middle children,
Yes.
and I guess the question is on the hoops front, who found who?
Mhm.
The coach find you, or did you find the coach? And how did that sort of get nurtured? Because you must have had. I mean, you say you're interested in basketball, but if you're not
Uh-huh.
really picking up the ball until you're age 13, right? That sounds pretty amazing.
Late.
How quickly? Well, yeah, maybe.
Yes. Yes, it was pretty late in the game, but like I said, when I started and when I picked it up, I never put it down. Literally every day I was working on my game. And that's how I was able to make up so much ground so fast because it was like year round, nonstop, 7 days a week. Just that was the mindset of the coach. He told us to get better. You got to put in time every day. So when we couldn't get in the gym, he would load us up in his minivan and take us to a nearby playground and continue our fundamental development. And this was a coach who was not even our coach. He was literally the security guard at the school who would volunteer his time and teach us fundamentals after school. So it was just, that's why I call it my divine intervention, because teaming up with someone who loved to teach the game, and here's a woman who now fell in love with the game. So I was able to learn from a coach who just loved to teach.
So this is the Miami Edison High School, right? Were they the Red Raiders at the time?
Yes, the Miami Edison Red Raiders.
Okay,
exactly.
so all right. So what was it about the team and basketball, or maybe both at the time, maybe the coach? What was the driving force? Because clearly you developed fairly quickly a passion for one or all of those things? And was it the team and the camaraderie? Was it the fact that you had other, it sounds like Haitian immigrant classmates that maybe was a bonding experience? Was it the sport itself, the athleticism? Was it you being, being seen and noticed on campus and all the attention that what was it that kind of drove you to kind of go all in on this?
I think it's just there was nothing to do. And when you're raised as a Haitian little girl, really it's just go to school and come back home. School is very important to my parents, and making sure you come straight home after school is even more important because we didn't live in a safe area. So for us, I just wanted to be able to have something else to do. And I begged my mom to be able to stay after to practice, and she would allow us to stay if it was something positive. So as I continued to excel, she became more of, okay, you know what, this could be something good. It'll lead to school. Okay, great. But it was really just something to do, because there was nothing else to do in that area. It was school and go back home. You didn't want to be out in the streets in that type of environment.
Okay, so this is roughly the early to mid 90s, right? And
yes.
When are you conscious of the fact that you're not just good, but you're like really good and standing out amongst not only your team, probably the city, but even on the state level, you're garnering a lot of attention. When do you does that ever go to your head? When do you kind of know that? And does that fuel you, or do you instill fear in you?
You know what? I didn't it almost seemed like I love playing so much that I didn't even realize like all that was happening because I was so into playing. Like I was so like, it was such a passion of mine that I didn't even recognize, or it didn't come to me not till later on in life, the awards and wow, girl, you're a player of the year. You're a player of the decade. It was such a big passion that I could have just literally played and just, I don't care what comes out of it. I just want to play. It wasn't until I believe Coach Gunner and Sue Gunner and Pokey Chapman came to our home and was wanting to offer me a scholarship to LSU. I think that's when it became more real. Like, oh my gosh, like, wow, like this is serious business. Like there's more to it than just playing. Wow. I think that's when it became more reality, when I got college coaches to come to my home for the first time.
So you knew you were, okay. So when did you know you were being recruited? Because that before the home visit, right? Probably comes visits to the gym and to games and that kind of stuff. And you might or might not know that they're there, right?
Yes. I started being recruited, I believe my junior year in high school, senior year. But before that point, I was just playing to have fun. Like I just enjoyed playing the game. It was, I didn't really care if you got an award or not. I just wanted to play. I can even remember after we won our first championship, it was like, okay, this is it. That's it. You just won the championship. There's no more games. There's no more playing. Like, okay, like, man, I don't want to win a championship because it stops, So for me, it was really weird. I just had this love affair with basketball to where, it just didn't, like, I just love to play. And it was like that even when I got drafted into the WNBA. Like, when they handed us our first check, I'm like, I didn't even, like, the check was just a check. I just wanted to play. And I'm like, wow, you get paid to play? They're going to pay me to play? It was one of those things where I would have done it for free because that's how passionate and how much I love the game.
All right. So one of the themes of your book, I'm not going to give it away. Obviously, we'll promote the heck out of it and all that kind of stuff. But is maybe what you're kind of maybe we're sort of skating into here. When I read the description and sort of some of the early sort of drafts of this, your I don't want to call it tunnel vision, right? But it's clear that you're developing a passion for basketball. Obviously, going to the next level collegiately. I can't imagine. I mean, that's like, we know it today truly being now very close to professional with NIL and stuff. But I think anybody with college students in their family knows that if they're playing Division I sports, right? That's a full-time endeavor. And in the late mid 90s, right? I can't imagine that I guess the question is, how much did you have to either willingly or unwillingly devote to basketball to the exclusion of all other stuff? Like, hard to be a student, right? When you're a top tier, highly recruited, and at a big program, kind of like LSU basketball player.
Yeah. Yeah. So, your question is basically how did I manage doing both?
Yeah, I
Pretty
mean, you're
much.
obviously got talent, right? And people, and the
Yeah.
talent obviously is going to the next level. I'm
Yes.
assuming that not only did you still enjoy the process, but it became maybe your reason for being as college went along, or
Mhm.
did it?
Yes. Yes, definitely. And like I told you before, I became so obsessed with basketball and having that single-minded focus and just seeing the tree and never just seeing the forest. That cost me when I retired. When I retired from sports, I felt like I had developed as a player, but I was neglected as a person. The person never got, I mean, I got the best trainers, the best coaches. I went to the best camp, shooting camp, position camp, whatever kind of camp. I did all of them. I got the best of the best when it comes as developing the athlete, but the person was left behind. So when I retired, I felt like I'd gotten my master in sport, but I was just entering middle school when it comes to the person skills, the people skills. And that's why today I go around, I speak to colleges, to athletes in high school, college, pros. You can do both. As athletes, you want to be the best. You're a fierce competitor, but you don't realize that, hey, you can compete and still make friends and be about relationship building. So we don't really never know how to do both. So we choose one. We become single-minded focused, and then we just live in the gym. We don't take advantage of the resources that's right in our face. And I always share this example of Nick Saban. When I played at LSU, I was there with Nick Saban. And I remember one time during practice, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher were all there, their whole entire staff, and they're, having their power hour exercise basketball game. And I come in early to get some shots up, and I can't get on the floor because they're on the floor. So I'm sitting there with a frown on my face, like, can these old guys get off the floor? I'm trying to get my shots. But I never had that confidence, nor the growth mindset, nor the awareness to say, hey, go introduce yourself to Nick Saban. Go develop a relationship. Go talk to Jimbo Fisher. How great would it have been to have these two people in my contact when I retired to look for opportunities. But these are the things that athletes miss out on because we focus on just, the basketball, the sport, and we don't see the full picture. We don't know how to maximize our platform. And my story is that, I just never knew how to do both. Growing up, my parents didn't really have much of anything to put us in Boys and Girls Club, YMCA's. I literally was in my home. If I wasn't in basketball practice, I was at the house. So I felt like I never even learned confidence early on. I didn't really have like effective communication skills. I didn't know the power of relationship building. Those things was never taught, and nor was I interested in it because I was in love with basketball. And right now, basketball was feeding me, and when I retired, I realized that, oh my gosh, I had neglected the person. I never put time in developing the person aside from the player. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm working on courses where while the player is being developed, the person is also being developed. So they both can, be equally developed at the same time.
So that's very profound, right? Because
Mhm.
and a hard lesson to kind of learn because in essence you're describing Orlean the college part of it thus far. We'll get to the WNBA in a second, but it's your lifeline and also your anchor, if you will, to the
Mhm.
detriment, perhaps after the fact, right? I mean, it's a lament that we've heard and continue to hear, and arguably something that you can help evolve and change and improve is it
How did you
sounds like a lament. It sounds like a lament to the outsider, right? Like, oh, it sounds like a pretty darn good life, right? Professional athlete, the big bucks and the fame and all that kind of all this endorsements and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. But what I'm hearing is it can be pretty much a vacuum. And once it's
Mhm.
done, and by the way, you're probably always aware that you're one injury away from it truly being done, right? That's
Mhm.
got to instill a lot of fear into, oh my God, now like the real world. What do I do now? I think a lot of athletes on the pro level, especially when their careers are cut short, unlike yourself, which you were lucky to have a long career on the
Mhm.
playing court, it almost feels like their self-worth is tied up in
Mhm.
that. And once that goes away,
Yeah.
their personality and the rest of their life essentially goes very much into question.
Yes, yes. And how did you put it? You said the lifeline, and there was something
And an
else.
anchor, to
Yeah.
the detriment, right? A weight, so to speak, that
Yes.
essentially drags you down.
Yes, yes. And the bigger of a star that you are, the more neglected as a person you will be because you don't do anything for yourself. Everyone does everything for you. So you never develop those skills because you have people around wanting to please you,
Pretty easy to
so
get
those
used to,
skills.
right?
Until people stop cheering for you and those people are not around anymore. And now you have to go and develop the person.
Okay, well, let's segue into the WNBA. So I'm assuming at LSU, obviously you were a standout player there. Um,
Hmm.
the league itself hadn't started until I guess roughly when you were starting college. I guess the WNBA was getting
Yeah.
going, right? How
Yes.
much how
Yes.
much how much did you know of the WNBA and maybe even previous attempts at women's professional basketball in this country? And how much did you just not know and care about and you were focused on a collegiate career and were you even
Hmm.
thinking pro at any point in your LSU career?
Be honest, even in high school, I always thought, okay, I'm going to be the first woman to play in the NBA because that's all there was. We didn't even know that there'd be a WNBA. It wasn't until I graduated high school, 97 is when the WNBA came about. But all along, it was like, oh, I'm going to be the first woman to play in the NBA, But of course, once it became a reality, the WNBA, that definitely became a goal of mine is to make it to the WNBA. That was the era of course, the Cheryl Swoops, the Rebecca Lobos, and you start to see women playing professional sports, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to go to the NBA, that we have a league of our own. I'm going to work even harder because I want to get there. But before that, it was always, man, I want to be the first woman in the NBA. That was my whole goal before the WNBA came.
There is and was at the time, right? There was some level of
Mhm.
professional opportunities abroad, right? I mean,
Yes,
you played for the U.S.
overseas.
national
Yes.
team in
Hmm.
the Taipei competition, the Jones Cup. So you
Yes.
probably had some
Yes.
knowledge of potentially professional opportunities.
Yeah.
I guess though it had to be a pretty amazing development that the NBA had
Hmm.
funded and finally launched the next generation, if you will, women's professional league. It had to be a huge shot in
Yeah.
the arm for all of you as
Yes.
players.
Yes. Oh, yes, it was very exciting because people, I mean, you go overseas, but you don't really want to go overseas. You know what I mean? You're away from your family, you're like 15 hours away, you're out of the country, you're in a country that's very different. You're driving on the wrong side of the road. It's just very, no one wants to go overseas, but it was the only option we had. So when the WNBA came about, we were very grateful to have an option, to be able to stay in the States and play, and at least if you want, you can go overseas, but you can, have the option to just play in the States.
Yeah, and we hear the same with women's professional soccer players. The same
Yeah.
dynamic, and now actually with hockey as well. I'll get your opinions about where the state of women's sports is near the end of our chat because I'm sure you've got some insights and stuff. But it's a whole. I mean, just even from some 20 some odd 30 years ago. I mean, the dramatic changes and the opportunities
Mhm.
and being able to do it at home, right? Which I think is
Yeah.
an amazing opportunity that
Amazing.
even just a few years prior to you getting into going to college and playing wasn't even a thing.
Yes. No, it really wasn't. The landscape of women's sport has just changed. And I mean, for the better, would have thought women's sport would be, I mean, just blooming the way it is. I mean, I sat here and watched the other day South Carolina versus LSU play on ESPN, and they were literally hosting like college game day in Baton Rouge. I mean, these tickets, and I'm a LSU alumni. When we played there, we literally had curtains that we would put down because the seats were all empty and they were trying to disguise that. Our tickets were like, you could get a ticket to our game for about 15 bucks. Come watch the girls play. And this is when I played. And to see South Carolina and LSU play just 2 weeks ago, and the game tickets were $4,000 a ticket. I was just astonished by just the growth of the game, and I felt like It was a sold out arena. You had College Game Day there, ESPN, all the media hype throughout the week. I just felt like no matter who wins this game tonight, there's no losers because women's basketball won tonight because this is what it should have been all along. So I see it's climbing, I mean, it's going to only get better. So I'm just grateful that, the women are finally getting the recognition that it's ultimately deserved, because it's a good product. I mean, when people give it a chance and they watch women's basketball, oh, there's no turning back. They become fans, season ticket holders. So I'm just proud of how far and how much the women game has evolved.
No, I agree. And I want to get to the WNBA stops in 1 second, but let me ask you this though: how much do these kids today recognize? I mean, you're hardly old, right? I mean, you're barely, you're not even AARP material yet. So, you got that going for you. But my point is that, I mean, you still are, I wouldn't say, I guess pioneer is the right word. It's not like, we're talking about the old WBL back in the late 70s. We've had a few conversations about that. But do people, current players, both on the pro level and at the collegiate level now, especially given just the sheer velocity of growth in just even the last 5 to 6 years, do people, are they recognizing, kind of the steps that you guys kind of helped build? Because, I mean, you're describing not too long ago, a collegiate experience, and I'm sure some of your first WNBA experiences, it wasn't all that, right? It was still early days and still kind of brick by brick, kind of building the foundation for all this stuff. Do you get any recognition for that yet?
I do. Just a week ago, I was in New York, and my reason for being in New York was for this exclusive WNBA screening that they were showing. They have a new documentary series on the WNBA. It's called Shattered Glass. And within that documentary, they're sharing the stories of the lifestyle or the life of a WNBA player. And they also have one former player on that show as well, who is Cheryl Swoops. And just hearing the current players, the Breonna Stewarts, the Jacquel Jones, and even Nneka Ogwumike, hearing these ladies talk about how, there's no them without us, and sharing how, but there's still more work to do, but they're sharing how, they're honoring people who've paved the way, and they're giving acknowledgement to the Lisa Leslies, the Cynthia Coopers, the Marie Ferdinands, all these women who have worked so hard, whether it's overseas or in the ABL, or, that have came before them to where now they're in position to make more money, more than we ever did when we played.
Yeah.
So, and I think that documentary, Shattered Glass, they're acknowledging the women who have paved the way for sure. And they do. And I do different appearances with some of the younger players, and it's always a thank you, man. We wouldn't have this, without the hard work, the blood, the sweat that you guys have put on. So there are a lot of appreciative women out there, current players.
No, that's great. And frankly, that should be the case. And we've seen it with other sports and stuff where it has taken a much longer time for that sort of recognition and that sort of that through line to kind of be recognized. All right. I want to get into some of your WNBA adventures. When did you know that you had a shot at this league? And when then also did you know that, my gosh, you were going to be a first rounder?
Well, I knew, just like I shared, and it's crazy how it works out, but I mean, it's truly how my mind works. I didn't really start thinking college, like literally like college basketball, like, wow, college basketball, because I was so into just playing the game until Sue Gunner and Pokey Chapman came to my apartment. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like college basketball is real. That's a place I can truly go and get a degree and continue my development with basketball. And it was the same thing when I was in college at LSU. It wasn't until I saw Dan Hughes walk into our practice to come scout me. And the coaches are like, we have a WNBA scout looking at you today at practice. And I'm like, what? So it became very real when I started getting WNBA coaches come to our practice to watch me practice.
All right, so you got drafted. You were what? You were the 8th pick, right? Of the
yes, and let me share a story even about
please.
that. And here I am, and at the time Miami Soul they have a team. There's a team, they have a franchise going there, and it's talk saying, oh, they're going to be drafting Marie Ferdinand, a local star in Miami. This would be a great fit. And here I am excited about that. I mean, who doesn't want to play in front of their family, their friends, their fans? So I thought, oh, Miami is where I'm going. That's what my agents were saying, word on the street was saying. So I'm pumped up, getting ready to hear my name get called to go to Miami. And lo and behold, the fifth pick came around, and Miami Soul went with Ruth Raleigh at the time. And I was crushed because I'm thinking, oh, I thought I was going to Miami. And I go from Miami to being drafted to Utah. And I'm just like, what a whole different scenario here. You go from Palm Beaches to like mountains, and I'm just like, okay, Utah, like what's in Utah, but it became the perfect move for me. When I said I was able to go into Utah and have an immediate impact on a team surrounded by great veterans, by Jennifer Azzi and Natalie Williams and Adrian Goodson. I mean, really good, solid veterans that took me under their wing and mentored me and taught me the game. And I was able to blossom as a rookie, at that team. All along, the Miami franchise folded. And then all the players had to get dispersed into other WNBA franchise. So it worked out for the best.
Yeah, you didn't know that at the time, but sure, it seems like that would have been a logical marketing and family kind of move for you to be with the Soul. But yeah, life has a strange way of making these things happen. This was the Starzz were one of the two Z's, please, if you're counting home, were one of the 8 original teams, and how much did you know about the organization at the time? I'm assuming the Jazz were part of the mixture in terms of the ownership.
Yes, they were.
Was that a good thing, a helpful thing? Was there cross-pollination? Did they not care? How graded was the, ticket sales and the support system and all that stuff?
We pretty much average. Like our attendance was really, really good. We just had an owner that wasn't really a big WNBA fan, to be honest. And each year he became less of a fan. I think if we had a different owner, maybe the Starzz had their own ownership team, I think the team would have stayed in Utah because the fans love Utah Starzz. Like we drew good. I mean, we were on the top 5 with attendance in the WNBA. So it was just unfortunate that we had an owner that really wasn't a big diehard WNBA fan, and each year he got less interested. So the team was sold to San Antonio.
When did you and your teammates find that out? Like, was there a rumor that a move might happen, or the fan base? Were you getting any inklings of that?
We didn't know, not throughout the season. It wasn't until the off season we found out that the team was going to be sold to a franchise in San Antonio. So it was more during our off season we found out about the news, which was sad because we had came to love Utah. We had great, like I said, a great fan base, and we had a great team. We loved the culture there. We loved it was just such a beautiful city, Salt Lake City. We enjoyed the environment. We enjoyed Utah. So it was very heartbreaking to hear that the team was being sold to San Antonio. Lots of tears, but we know it's business. So we kind of just was professional about it and just got ready for San Antonio.
All right, what's this? Royal Retros. All right, longtime fans of this show may remember a little site that we used to promote the heck out of called 503 Sports. Well, not only are they still around, they are now known as Royal Retros. RoyalRetros.com, the king of throwbacks. And like the name implies, the highest quality jerseys and hats and apparel and all kinds of stuff related to various teams and leagues and situations that we love to obsess about here on this show. And I'm talking about getting jerseys with your name and number on the back of them, customized to your liking for the WHA or old NHL hockey teams that may not exist anymore. Perhaps it's a Federal League team from way back or a Negro League team. Maybe you're just enamored with the various football leagues of the past, like the Arena League or the All-American Football Conference or the original UFL, United Football League. Yes, you can get all of those teams in all kinds of colors, away jerseys, home jerseys. You want to put your name on them. You want to make sure you got the official patch on the side. All of those things and more at royalretros.com. And I'm not kidding, friends. You go there, you want to find that Cleveland Barons jersey to wear and show. Hey, you're maybe a Colorado Avalanche fan and you want to represent the Quebec Nordiques from where they came in the arena to show your heritage and your love and knowledge of the history of that franchise. You can do that and more. And I'm talking across football and basketball and baseball and hockey and you name it. All kinds of great stuff for you to find and buy and purchase and wear proudly from Royal Retros. That's royalretros.com. And of course, we have a promo code for you. We want to save you money from all these great things. And here's that code. It's SEATS, SEATS, promo code SEATS for all of your purchases at royalretros.com. Check them out. You'll be glad you did. We love them. And our friend Destin Alameda there out in Portland, Oregon, we appreciate his and their sponsorship of this show. And now, back to our conversation. And your impressions of San Antonio, had you ever been there before? Did you like the new name? Starzz, this time with an S and silver in front of it. And then, I mean,
Yes.
Right. It's a business, but it's still you. It's a life. It's your, I don't know what your family situation was at the time, but I mean, it's you got to move, right? And it's a different location. Couldn't be more diametrically different than Salt Lake.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a great move. San Antonio is a bigger city. Well, not bigger city, but San Antonio was a city that, pushed really hard for a WNBA franchise. They always say it's best to be wanted, not tolerated. So I felt like we were coming somewhere where, hey, they want us here, and they truly supported the women's basketball there in San Antonio from the very jump. We had fans coming to our practices. I mean, showing up at all our games. The fan engagement was huge, So I thought it was a great move because, like I said, they wanted us and they fought so badly to get a franchise and to team up with the Spurs Sports and Entertainment brand, such reputable brand. That was also a plus too because of how they conduct business. Just very first class organization. Everything they did with the Spurs, they funneled it and did it with the Stars. So we were treated like professionals on and off the court.
And you were blessed to have an 10 or 11 year career in the WNBA, which is that's a pretty strong and a consistent playing career, and obviously performing well across all of it. How about injuries? How about the various cities that you played in? The quality of play. Did you have any ports of call that you enjoyed visiting or not? Even the home games. What of the WNBA experience? Was it a grind? I got to think it was with a compressed schedule during the summer, right?
Yeah, I always, even when I go out and speak to teams, and I always share that I played 12 years in the WNBA, and my greatest years came with my experience in Los Angeles, because those 3 years I went from being this star player to now finding myself on the bench for the first time of my life.
This was with the Sparks, right, of LA?
This was with the Sparks. And I feel like those were my greater years because I was introduced to service. For once in my life, I learned how to, hand water to my teammates, cheer for others while they're having success, learn what preparation is, learn the value of 1 minute in the game. I was playing with Candace Parker and Lisa Leslie and Tina Thompson and Tisha Pinachero and Alicia Milton. I mean, literally had 5 Olympians on the team. And here I am on the bench, and I had to learn, how do I make a productive production on the bench? how do I maximize 1 minute in the game? How do I turn garbage time into an opportunity time? And it literally changed my whole perspective. It made me this ultimate teammate, this true professional. It made me who I am today, but I'm not who I am today without going through that experience. A lot of athletes shy away from being on the bench. Everyone wants to be in a game, but there's valuable lessons to be learned on the bench.
Around you, this league, how stable did you think it was? I think the aughts were kind of I want to say up and down, but it sort of had its moments of success and expansion, and then also some rumblings of stability, and hell, you even had some very successful franchises moving around, which didn't sort of imply stability, like the Houston Comets, for example, being taken over. I mean, how did you feel about this as an enterprise? Did you feel like it was stable? It was growing? Did you have any concerns? Did you worry about the future of the league, or did you feel like it was just growing pains and that kind of stuff? No checks bounced, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I looked at it as growing pains because you would see a team drop out. Okay, this year this team folded, and then there'd be times we'd wake up and we wouldn't know, oh, where are we practicing? Okay, we're gonna go to a high school gym, a college gym, so little things like that would make you think like, wow, are we going to make it? Are we truly going to make it? So of course, those years it was challenging. And I'm sure many of the WNBA players, were thinking, wow, like definitely what's going to happen. The state of the league is not really great because one or two teams was always, ceasing operation. And then the condition of, having to room, 2 players per room, have a roommate, on the road, you can't have your own hotel room you're sharing. So a lot of different things that you just was seeing, it was like you question like, how stable are we? But as the years kept going, we started to, the league started to take a change for the best. We started getting more people involved, more sponsorship dollars started rolling in, and we started to see, we started to get expansion. Now we started to bring in team opposed to losing team. They were finding ways to expand on what we were having opposed to dropping. So the outlook for players were definitely optimistic because, and now we were able to, have our own rooms, little things that we were seeing that was now changing. It made us realize that, that we have a chance to really stay here, stick around for many more years. And now we're in our 27th year, and no one really thought we'd be here for 27 years. But it's only going to get better. And I think there's so many people now that want to invest in women's basketball. So I think the league is in great hands, and the sky's the limit now.
Okay, I do want to ask that one little asterisk of this, right? So do you remember any away games against the Liberty when you were playing? And specifically, do you remember playing any of those games at Radio City Music Hall?
You know what? I do, because those are the ones where I believe you had to take like a flight of stairs.
Yeah, there's a little asterisk. This was, I think it was 2004, right? Madison Square Garden was hosting the Republican National Convention, so the Liberty had to play games at Radio City Music Hall. And I vividly remember some pictures. I wish I had gone to a game. I mean, you were literally playing on the stage of Radio City Music Hall with the Rockets do their thing every year.
Which was very, very bizarre. I mean, we couldn't really even focus on the game because we just couldn't believe we were literally like playing on the stage. Like it was just so abnormal, but that's the life of a WNBA player. When you play in the WNBA, like you're literally trained to like, hey, expect anything to happen. You don't know. So you're not super surprised, but I mean, that Radio City and that stage, that was quite bizarre. I think that one right there takes the cake for everything that we've had to experience in the early stages of the league.
And any favorite locations, any favorite cities that you enjoyed? I mean, obviously San Antonio and then LA and then I think you ended your career in Phoenix, right? With the Mercury, right?
Yes, with the Mercury. Yes.
How about opponents or home courts or any other sort of standout sort of favorites or memories of your various travels, or maybe frankly places that you didn't like, or you didn't think were going to live on too much longer.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been all roses and perfume every port of call.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed actually Sacramento. There was a franchise in Sacramento called the Sacramento Monarchs, and I love going there because the atmosphere was always electric. I mean, they average a sold out pretty much every game. Like that was a great environment to play in. It was always just an hostile environment, but so electric at the same time. I was very surprised that the team didn't make it because the fan attendance was so good.
Well,
So I enjoyed
that was in
playing
the
there.
old Arco Arena, right? Which was sort of very
Yes,
intimate,
yes.
and frankly, it was, I guess, originally
Mhm.
it was kind of a makeshift arena for when the Kings
Yeah.
arrived back in the day, and they still hadn't found
Yes.
a more modern place. So I'm guessing it was cozy, and that also kind of maybe helped with the intimacy and maybe the fan base. No.
Mhm. Yes, yes, definitely. That definitely played a role in it for sure. Not just myself, a lot of my teammates, that was one of the games that was circled, like, yeah, Sacramento, because they not only had a tough team, a good team with Yolanda Griffith and Tisha Pinachero, but I mean, just the fan support was just amazing to see that, with the women's game at that juncture of the league, to see such great support from the fans, diehard supporters. So for me, that was always a fun one to go to Sacramento and try to get a good road win in Sacramento.
Okay, so as you were winding down your career and you're recognizing that you're a role player, a support player, you're not starting as much, you're not sort of the, but and recognizing that gear shift, if you will, as a professional, when do you kind of think and know that the end of the career is approaching? Did you, if you will, were you able to leave on your own terms? Was it kind of dictated to you? And more interestingly, what did you think when that time presented itself? What did you think you were going to do next? Were you going to stay in the game, or was it really a question mark because you hadn't given it much thought because of what we talked about earlier?
Yeah. Well, I knew it would be my last year, but at the same time, I really didn't want to announce it. I'm very private, very reserved. I'm more like the Tim Duncan. I kind of wanted to do it very quietly. And that's what I did. But when I did it, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't start thinking about it until I knew I had stopped playing. Like, okay, what's next? But luckily, I had gotten into running my own academy down in San Antonio, had me a AAU club team with high school to elementary team that I did for a very long time, but just jumped into that. I feel like, you know what? I can always lean on my expertise. I understood basketball very well, and I love to develop players. So jumped into that, but I didn't know I was going to retire that year. Well, I knew, but I didn't want to make an announcement. I wanted to do it quietly.
And for yourself, what did you think you would sort of segue into? Did you ever consider coaching? Did you ever consider a front office type of stuff? Did you ever consider other aspects of the game that you had essentially given your life to for the 20 years prior? Or did you truly not have any idea? I get the sense that, again, themes from the book, some that we talked about, you think you're prepared, but maybe you kind of weren't.
To be honest, I didn't even give it much thought. That's the sad thing about it. Like, when you know you're going to retire, you have the awareness, the growth mindset to start, hey, let me start talking to the team owner and the GM, and let me share with them that, I'm getting ready to do this, and I want to look at some post-athletic opportunities. But that light bulb for me never went off. I didn't even think to talk to a GM coach. I mean, I barely even told my agent until the last minute. It was one of those things where I just thought, you know what, I'll just retire and just figure it out once I'm done. But that's why in the book, I share my whole story on so many lost opportunities, how I didn't maximize my platform, and, a message to athletes on how to not do what I did. And I pretty much give them a blueprint on how they should do it. But it's sad to see that, the game you gave everything to, you not come out with something else right immediately after, whether it's, being a coach or being a part of the front office and doing something, but that just don't for some players, that light bulb never go off. You're not thinking about that until you literally don't have the uniform no more. You're not reporting to a team and it become reality. And you're like, okay, what am I doing now? And then all of a sudden you're thinking of the lost opportunities because now you're not wearing that jersey. So it's not as easy to go pick up the phone and call your coach, call your GM. I mean, they're focused on the next star, so you make your job difficult when you don't pre-plan for these things. And you have all the opportunities to do it because there are people who will help you. They probably want you to be a part of the front office, be a part of the coaching staff. But a lot of times I just think athletes just don't have that growth mindset to really prepare for that. There's some of us that do it well, like Swin Cash and Tamika Catchings, and even Becky Hammond. I think some of them think about the game after the game, and most of us, we're only thinking about the game right now. So, but that's all part of the course that I want to create, which is to help athletes win in life, not just in sport, be grooming that person so that way post-athletic opportunities, there's plethora of them because you're well-rounded and you have that awareness to start now. Work with the GM now. Go talk to your team owners. Let's establish a relationship so that when your career is over, you can walk into you can go pro in something else.
So does that also include things like financial management and personal finance and all that kind of stuff? Because you hear those sad and classic stories of generations past of pro athletes who made all the money and then lost all the money and then then the career was over. And yeah, if only, right, they had known earlier on. Does that include that kind of stuff too? I would imagine it's holistic in your approach, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a holistic development program focusing on confidence, communication, networking, relationships, the importance of relationships, because that's one thing I see athletes struggle with. They don't know how to be a competitor, but at the same time, be a friend to your opponents, so they pick to be competitors, so it's about relationship building. It's about financial literacy. That's something that, we struggle with, managing money, having a good relationship with money. We don't come from money. So a lot of time when we get it, we don't manage it correctly. So financial literacy is a part of that, professionalism. So just trying to create a program that can really help athletes win in life, not just in the sport that they play.
All right. One, I wouldn't call it final, but sort of one huge part of this story that we haven't talked about yet is the fact is during your playing career, you became a mom. You got married and you had 3 children during the course of your, I believe it was all during the course of your playing days, correct?
Yes, yes.
And I think that goes, I won't say unnoticed, but that's kind of that's superwoman right there, right? I mean, to get married, start a family, and have a top level professional playing career at the same time, while being a pioneer, if you will, for a league that future was not guaranteed. That's a lot. And how do you keep it all together when you're doing that?
Well, you learn time management. You have a good support team, which I had, and you just managed. I mean, you manage it. I remember when I had my first son, I remember having to go overseas and I had to leave him at 2 months. I left all the way and went to Poland, and he stayed behind with my mom. And at the time, I believe Cedric was still playing, my husband, and little CJ was left at home. And I was all the way miles away from home in Poland, out of all places. I'm just thinking, like, what in the world am I doing here? But that's the life of a women professional athlete, especially in basketball. You don't make so much money to where you can just live off your WNBA salary. You have to supplement. So going overseas, 80 to 90% of the girls are overseas during the off season. And when I had CJ, that was a commitment I had to do. I had to be away for like 6 long months from having my son, and he was only 2 months old. So you just learn, mental toughness. You focus on, hey, you're not going to have these opportunities long. You try to maximize them, and you just rely on your support team. You rely on FaceTime and Skype and all these things that they had at the time. And, you make the most of it and you survive while you can.
Yeah, I think we sort of forget that it's still today, but certainly back in the day, and again, not all that long ago. Playing in the off season in Europe and other places, right, to make a living full time at the professional basketball thing.
Yep. It's a tough and that's why, once you watch, and I don't know if you guys are into documentaries, but once you watch the latest WNBA documentary called Shattered Glass, you understand the life of a WNBA player, because you have women in there having to leave and, go overseas and leave their family and be gone for 8 whole months. And once they get back, they have to jump right into the WNBA season, and they're literally playing year round. It becomes very it could be very depressing sometimes, but you're only going to be able to maximize those contracts that you're able to get overseas. It's not going to last long, so a lot of players try to capitalize.
Given that, and the growth of the league and the women's game, even at the collegiate level and NIL and all the monies and all the rising tide, shall we say, women's sports, pro sports, and the money behind it, private equity now and all that. Do you see a scenario relatively soon where players won't have to do that off-season thing to supplement their incomes, and the WNBA could be, or is that still kind of a ways away? Or maybe the other stuff, like the other supplemental stuff, like, there are more, shall we say, ancillary opportunities like endorsements and business startup kinds of things and other business type of ventures that could supplement, if you will, the WNBA salary. I guess the question in there is, when will the WNBA salary thing be enough so that players can relax, rest, if you will, physically during the a true off season versus having to be constantly on the hamster wheel?
Well, I think it's happening now. The salaries are up. A lot of and now they've actually started their first off-season program called PMAs, which is called Player Marketing Agreements, where they have right now, I believe it's 15 women who are allowed to stay and not go overseas, and they're going to pay these women to stay at their team, whatever market they're in, and do appearances for the whole entire off season, and they're going to pay them, kind of what they're being paid overseas, to just stay local. So they're realizing that, how hard it is for women to play year round, and how we don't want to do that. So the WNBA has now agreed to have PMAs, which is player marketing agreements, to where players are now being able to stay home and get paid to do appearances. It's only about 15, 20 girls now, but I believe every year it's just going to go up. It's going to increase. So that's a huge plus for a lot of players, because it's a start. It's a start of something special.
And I got to think too, with the increased media coverage, right, with the Scripps networks, or sorry, the Ion network owned by Scripps, and the bigger funnel, if you will, of television exposure and coverage and stuff. There's probably more opportunities for on-air commentary and all the ancillary programming, shall we say, that along with that too. So this seems to be like there will be more opportunities for that as well. Arenas, facilities, the training facility. Seems like there's more of an industry, if you will, that's now backing up the league and what could come from it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree anymore. That is exactly what's happening. There's just people who they want to be a part of the WNBA now. They want to help women's sports. They're all in. And it's something beautiful to see, because, they're finally arriving at the table, where before people didn't really want to, it was hard to get those sponsorship dollars, but now people want to work with us. They're coming to us, whereas we begging them to be a part of our league. So it's definitely changing for the good. And it's something it's special to see that.
Okay, I do want to do one important gear shift here before we let you go. I do want to focus on what you're doing both professionally, but also with your organization. I mean, obviously, part of your story is the tragic loss of your first son, and the organization that you have built in his honor since then. maybe a little bit of background about sort of the impetus for that, what the organization does, and importantly, how people who are listening can be part of it as well, because I know that's a very big part of your life as well. It should be, and making it good for others that may not have as much or even a hint of what you had growing up.
Yeah, and it's actually the Be Like CJ Foundation, and it's near and dear to our hearts because it's, a foundation to keep our son CJ, keep his legacy alive. Most people who know CJ, they know he was a high caliber athlete, but what made CJ special was his character and how he treated people. Although a star player, CJ wanted no part of the star treatment. This kid is as humble can be, very kind-hearted, just had a heart for the broken, the kids who were special needs, the kids who didn't have clothes, the kids who just didn't have a friend. CJ gravitated to those kids. He just cared more for those kids who needed a friend, and that's CJ. So his whole foundation, we're all about, our mission is just to inspire children and family nationwide by uniting people of different backgrounds through services and sports program. We have this thing on our website that says become an ultimate teammate, trying to get more people to be an ultimate teammate in life, just going around the whole kindness message, to be like CJ, be kind, be humble, be respectful. You can be a badass athlete, but still treat people with kindness, still love. CJ love. No, it doesn't matter if he had all these accolades. At the age of 14, 8th grade, CJ already had a scholarship, full ride to LSU for both football and baseball. But CJ didn't even want us to tell his teammates. He was so humble. He begged us not to share this news with people, because he never wanted to make himself feel more important than his teammates. CJ was the kid that would go on his basketball team and try to hurry up and score 60 points if he could, because he understood if the team got up big, his teammates who sat on the bench, they could get a chance to play. So he just had a heart. He just had a heart for the broken. And we want to keep his legacy alive. We want to keep that kindness going. So through his foundation, we're always doing plethora of events and different sporting events, kindness campaigns in schools. Cedric and we go and speak at schools, speaking the message of being humble, being an ultimate teammate in life, being like CJ. So if you guys want to learn more about the Be Like CJ Foundation, you can go to belikecj.org and see all the amazing things we're doing, and even support us. And in my book, Transform, The Winning Side of Losing, I share about CJ. I share his life. I share who he was, and I share of all the amazing things that we're doing through his foundation. So I'm excited about the opportunity to do even more. Within 2 years, we've already done so much, and we're looking to broaden our reach and partner with more people, the Junior NBA, the NFL Youth Platform, the Major League Baseball Youth Platform. So CJ is here, and his legacy is continuing on forever. It's so heartwarming to see so many kids wear his shirt, Be Like CJ's shirt, his wristband. He has such a huge following. He's a special kid, and there's so many kids who still hold him just right in their heart. They just love CJ. And so that's pretty much what I do, run his day-to-day operation and everything Be Like CJ. And I'm now getting ready to go on a speaker circuit, promoting my book, Transform, and just sharing my triumphant field journey on becoming a trailblazer and understanding how even in loss, you're still victorious. So there's a lot in the horizon, and I'm looking forward to the future.
That's a beautiful tribute and a lasting memory that I think it's inspirational to say the least. And we'll promote the heck out of all of those things before and after the as we edit this together and all that social media. And
Thank
stuff.
you.
Rest assured on that.
Thank you.
But let me.
I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
Tim.
Well, so let me. But I'm not going to let you go though for one until I get one last sort of question into here. I'm really.
Okay.
We've kind of danced around this. I'm really intrigued about your viewpoint of where professional basketball for women lives right now, what the state of it, the college game, women's sports generally, pride, a little wistfulness that maybe some of the dollars that some of these young ladies are getting now maybe wasn't happening as robustly in the early 2000s maybe than they are today. Future, all of it, how do you feel about the state of things for women's sports and basketball in particular, given your journey and your legacy contributions, shall we say?
Uh-huh. Oh, I think women's basketball is in great hands. I mean, women we are here to stay. And it was very difficult to say that once upon a time. But as you see the sponsored dollars going up, you see the TV deals are coming in. They're not a struggle anymore. We're not asking, people are asking us now. That's a sign of sustainability, So I think it's in great hands. We have a core group of talented young women playing the game the right way and are very good. And college basketball is making the WNBA even more better because you have talented athletes maneuvering over to the WNBA. The Caitlin Clarks she's getting ready to go into WNBA, and that same following is going to follow her in the WNBA, which is going to be great for the WNBA. So I just think we're in a great place. It's exciting to be a women basketball player these days. The growth is just continuing to grow. The salaries are going up. Like I said, we're getting TV deals, we're getting sponsorships. We're working on charter flights. That's becoming a reality where before it wasn't a reality to do charter. So I see the growth. I see how optimistic it is now to literally dare the dream to have a lot of things that we've been hoping, but now these things are becoming a reality. So it's an exciting time for the WNBA, and I think it's here to stay for sure.
All right, and here's the last question: when the Ring of Honor or the however teams celebrate their legacies and reunions and all that kind of stuff, right? This is sort of a legacy question. Where will your banner go when you're honored? Let's assume that's the case. I think it's very much in the realm of possibility. Does it reside with the Las Vegas franchise, given that the linear heritage of this team from Utah to San Antonio is in Las Vegas, right? Or do you not care about that, or do you think of it as a completely different franchise?
I would definitely think it would probably, if not that I would pick, but I would think that's the team I spent the most years with.
Sure.
I spent almost 6 years in San Antonio, and then I lived there for 12 years. So there's a lot of relationships, a lot of family, friends, a lot happened in San Antonio. So I would think the franchise now in Las Vegas. So I would think, yes, Las Vegas would probably be the safe place to say, to be honest.
Well, you are the Sparks of the Mercury. It's kind of a silly question, but it's actually, we obsess about that kind of stuff because it's like, okay, where does that history live, right? So all those stats from their, 8 seasons there between Utah and San Antonio, they have to live somewhere. And I guess historically or literally, they kind of reside with the Las Vegas franchise now, but it's just curious. I'll tell you what, why don't you call me the minute you get some kind of invitation for that kind of honor, and then we'll have another debate about where that legacy should live. Okay.
Do you get a vote in those kind of things happening?
Sure. Why not? All right. Our sincere thanks to Marie for that lovely, wonderful, and inspiring conversation. The book that you must get is called Transformed: The Winning Side of Losing. It is by our guest this week, Marie Ferdinand-Harris. It is available wherever fine books are found. Perhaps you'd like to frequent your local bookseller and have them secure a copy for you and help keep that local independent bookstore thriving in your neighborhood. You can go to our website at goodseatsstillavailable.com, search up this episode number 339 with Marie, and you'll find a convenient link or two to the Amazon pathway. We'll get a couple of shekels of referral love. Thank you very much. And the book is available in either paperback or Kindle format. But even more interestingly, and perhaps more personally, you can go to Marie's website and get a signed personalized copy for yourself. And that website is marieferdinand.com. I'll spell it for you. It's Marie. Ferdinand is Ferdinand. marieferdinand.com. just tell her that you heard her and me on this here little show. And I'm sure she'll be more than happy to commemorate that event, as well as sign a personal copy for you. And also, I must shout out the organization that she and her husband run in memory of their departed son, Cedric Harris, otherwise known as CJ. It is the Be Like CJ Foundation. And like the name implies, the website address is Be Like CJ. That's BELIKE CJ.org. BeLikeCJ.org. Wonderful organization. They do lots of great stuff for kids and families in various challenging situations in need of hope, encouragement, and embodying, I guess you could say, the spirit that still lives on in young CJ that Marie and her husband continue to turn into positivism. We could use a whole lot more of that in the world today, and we are really excited and happy and ecstatic to shine a spotlight on that and her husband's efforts on that front. Like I said before, goodseatsstillavailable.com. That is the locus for our little show, all the various episodes we've ever done. Feel free and please find, subscribe, follow us wherever you get podcasts. Make sure that you get that feed up and running and ready so that you get every single drop of audio goodness that we send your way each and every week. We don't want you to miss a thing. You can send us email at hello@goodseatsstillavailable.com. You can follow us on various socials. You'll find us on X at Good Seats Still. You'll find us on Facebook and Threads at Good Seats Still Available. You'll find us on Instagram at Good Seats Still Available. And, of course, you can find Jerry Payne somewhere in the Atlanta metropolitan area trying to keep up with our ridiculous requests for him each and every week with our various attempts at trying to create a show here. It's been more than 7 years now, and he hasn't run screaming yet, although I do hear stories once in a while. Jerry Payne Audio Excellence. He is in the suburbs of Atlanta. Our tip of the cap to you once again, as always, fine sir. Thank you, of course, for listening. Lots of good stuff coming your way in the weeks and months ahead. We appreciate all of your support, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, of course, please do take care of yourselves.